Hey Chris, how you doing? It's Brian here at Locanda Estate. Looking forward to a wonderful day talking about wines.
Well, thanks for having me, Brian.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is great. You know, it's a wonderful thing. You know, when I grew up here in Sonoma County,
Right.
I go all over the world, but then you find these little treasures in Sonoma County. It's so great to be here with you and to really check out the amazing piece of property that we're sitting on right here. So we're in Sonoma Valley.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about this situation and how this amazing piece of property came into Joe and Kelly's hands.
It's a really cool property. It's nestled up back up in the hills, as you can see, right off the Highway 12, but we're actually next door to Chateau Saint-Jean, and then a little bit down the road from Landmark. And Joe bought this property in 2007, and then we replanted the lower vineyard, which is Arbuckle Gravelly Loam down there. We replanted that in 2008, and then actually last year, this is a completely different soil type. This is red clay loam, and we planted this last year. So it's a really fun project.
It's kind of cool because you can look up here, and even these rocks right here, you can see some of the color of these rocks, and that's what's up on this hill. This is the Mayacamas Mountain, so this is the same soil that you're going to have right over the hill, which is in Oakville in Napa Valley. So very, very similar soil on this part, but down there, kind of as it starts to go down towards, you know, the valley floor down there, it's a little bit more of a beige color.
Yeah.
Interesting, you know? And there's a lot of the rock deposited down there from the old riverbeds, whereas this is more volcanic soil, and iron-rich volcanic soil at that.
Exactly.
So that's great. It's amazing to be here. I feel like I'm in Italy. This is a very interesting thing about Joe and his passion for Italy and how, I mean, this looks like a villa right here, but you know, the passion came from Joe. Tell us a little bit about that.
Joe went to school at the University of Rome in Italy and lived in Rome and traveled around, and he's just always had a kin. His native heritage is Italy, Italian, and he just has always had a kin to Italian varietals and lifestyle. When he bought this property, it came with a beautiful little Italian villa on it, and he ended up building a couple other buildings on the property here. We've got the pool house and then the bunkhouse with the garage. And he wanted the vineyard, and so we planted the bottom vineyard, and now we got the top vineyard, and we just wanted the villa theme. And if you've ever been to Italy, it truly is reminiscent of what you'd feel like at an old villa in Italy.
Yeah. So a little bit about your background. I see a little rosé right there. We better taste that for sure.
For sure.
But you know, talking about Europe, I mean, you as a winemaker, you and I have known each other for quite a while.
Yep.
I've respected you for so many of the projects you've done, and that's why I thank you so much for inviting me.
Sure.
But you also have a really good background in French wines. Like, that's really where you learned how to be a winemaker.
Yeah. I started off in Texas and went to school for architecture and decided I didn't want to be an architect. What I did was I decided I would sell everything I own and move to France to learn how to make wine. I went to the University of Bordeaux. I worked at a couple of chateaus, and you know, my dad and I grew up drinking French wines. That was what we did. So I loved that mouthfeel. I like that old world style. I like the high racy acid, but that fat plush richness. So that's sort of what I focus on. I like creamy, textural, balanced wines. Obviously, you want to accent the fruit. You want to accent the acid. But long-term aging wines. They're very atypical Napa Sonoma wines.
Yeah. Well, this is you know, kind of going back to France. I mean, this color right here is so Provence.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a brilliant Provence salmon pink. Obviously, it's got a California twist to it in the fact that it's not grown here. This fruit, it's 2,600 feet up above, you know, on the Sierra foothills. Really interesting site. Very rocky soils up there. Very interesting, and it's Grenache based.
Buddy of mine is a really famous vineyard manager up there, and I work with him on a couple of things. He found this property for me, and just beautiful hillside, Grenache. It's Grenache Rouge, actually. It's old vine, 80-year-old old vine Grenache Rouge.
Oh, I hear the ice cream truck coming.
That sounds like that, yeah.
That's amazing. I love the lovely music.
I'm going to turn that off real quick.
Please. While he's doing that, I'm digging on this.
Cool.
So really nice kind of work of art here. You know, you've got the mountain fruit, you've got your style, and an amazing kind of Provence kind of style that is very fruity but pronounced, and also has amazing floral components on the nose. I mean, this is like, if you took rose petals and you crushed them and you put them in a thing, then you might put a little bit of different kinds of spring flowers in there and just crush it all up, and potpourri. It's potpourri, and it's beautiful.
I think I'm pretty spoiled. I think Grenache is pretty much the only grape you should make in rosé from. I mean, there's some Seigneurs out there that are really beautiful. But if you're making true whole cluster rosé, Provence, south of France style, it's got to be from Old Vine Grenache.
I love it. Beautiful wine. Just really tasting extremely well. You know, I love the texture too. There's a lot going on in here. You know, as a sommelier for so long, these are the kinds of wines I really like. Get people engaged. I mean, there's tons of patio pounders out there, you guys. Don't worry about that. They will continue to be out there. This is kind of for grown-ups. This is for the kind that really we start a meal, and it's not necessarily the reception as much as first course, second course, where you can really do fish dishes with this. You can do one of those really nice touched-up soups with this. This is fine with cheeses, and we've got a nice selection right in front of us. But it's just a beautifully, you know, balanced wine.
I stainless steel ferment this wine. It's whole cluster press, stainless steel fermented. And then I leave it in tank until it's completely done, gets no ML, and then I drop it down to neutral French oak for about 45 to 60 days. And the reason I do that is it just rounds out those soft, plush mouthfeel. You want to keep that racy high acid, but you really want to soften the edges, is what I call it. So soften those edges before you bottle it, just because I really don't want any grip or bitterness at all to the wine.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fun project for sure. We only make around 90 cases a year.
Yeah, crazy. Well, you know, the great thing about Joe is he's a wonderful doctor, world traveler. You know, he's in Dubai. He's teaching people about health all over the world. And, you know, his passion for Italian wine is great. But, you know, in Italy, they just don't have enough, Grenache to really make a fun name for it. So it's called Grenache here, Rosé of Grenache.
Exactly.
And it really goes by a tradition, kind of more what you're based on, which is the amazing wines of France and you know, Provence in particular. But this is from California, and there's no doubt that this has that style. It has that mountain fruit in it, and that's what makes it so interesting and so different from your typical kinds of rosés out there. And believe me, I taste a lot of them. The competitions I judge, you know, rosé has gone through the roof. I mean, listen, you guys, if you don't know this, in the old days, rosé was not cool. Like, it got people to start drinking wine, which is a great thing, but it tended to be sweet, so our pairings were very hard to do. Today, it is part of the food culture. Yeah. And I think as our younger generations grow up, they're just going to see rosé as being part of our regular kinds of wines that we have all the time. Whereas when we were kids, this was not in vogue, not at all. And I think that you guys have done a great job of really making one that's A, grown up, and B, has a personality that's all its own.
Cool, thank you.
Got it.
Appreciate that. Cheers.
Love this. Cheerios. So, you know, here we are on the estate talking about this. What's up here that you've got planted now? Tell us a little bit about this section right here.
So, Joe said I could plant this. Unfortunately, it was right after the fires. We had it actually
in
opened up for us.
2017. Yep.
It actually opened up for us, and he said I could sort of do whatever I wanted up here. So I wanted a little cab, just because cab is king, and I wanted to see what it would do with a little bit of hillside fruit right here. This is all clone 7 on 1103 Paulson. Oh, cool. And then we planted my favorite grape in the world, which is Corvina.
Yep.
I sourced some budwood out of Italy. So I've got Corvina all the way to almost the end. And then I planted a little bit more Durif down at the end down there to go with one of the wines you're going to have today. I wanted a balance between hillside and a little more valley floor to create a little bit of complexity.
So the first wines that he was talking about, the varietals, are really things that are used in Italy. A lot of them are used in Amarone. Amarone is one of the great grapes of Italy, or great regions of Italy that has these selections of grapes, and that's why they're so interesting. Here we do not do very much with those grapes. that's why this is such a unique vineyard right behind us. The other one that he was talking about is Durif. Durif, to wine people, is the same as Petite Syrah. So for those of you that have had Petite Syrah, this is a very special kind of grape. And the fact is that it's special because it was brought over here right after Zinfandel became popular. So we're talking about the 1890s. And it's not its own, it just didn't sprout out of the ground in France. It was actually kind of a breed of two grapes that came together. That is Syrah, which we know fairly well, and a different grape called Pelersan. The problem with the grapes being brought together, it was by Dr. Durif, an amazing horticulturalist who really wanted to help both the people in the northern part of the Rhone Valley and the people down closer to the Mediterranean. The problem with that is those two areas did not like each other. So he tried to sell it to the north and he tried to sell it to the south. They said, if it's got some of theirs in it, I don't want it. The thing is that he brought it here to America, or, the reason it was brought here, this was California. No one knew what the potential was here, but we needed those hardy grapes to prove it. And this was the second coming of Zinfandel. And now today you find it put in with Zinfandel, or sometimes it's Petite Syrah with Zinfandel in it. Or these kinds of amazing farm blends that you come across from the old vines here. And it's very interesting because Sonoma Valley is very well known for Zinfandel. It does have some very nice plantings of Petite Syrah as well. But this is a special Durif clone. Yeah. This is a very, very special, kind of bridge building wine that goes from the old world to the new world. And it also has a great tradition of being here, planted by Italians of all people. Yeah. Believe it or not, here we are at the villa. This makes sense. Yeah. So amazing, what you've done. Tell us a little bit about the plantings down there.
So you just touched on the Durif. So half the vineyard down below us on the red clay loam is it's called Romulus. It is 100% Durif. And then we also have Primitivo down there.
Primitivo!
Yeah. And that's your middle glass here. And that's the other half of the vineyard. And so that makes up these first two wines. We make about 85 to 95 cases of each a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Locanda is a great name because it really goes back to the heritage of Rome and the mother coming in there. Remember, this was not a male-oriented thing that they called Locanda. Was this amazing goddess, not a god. And that was a very interesting thing. So Romulus and Remus, the great children.
The founders of Rome.
The founders of Rome that came from the goddess. So you've got one named after each one. Yep. I love it. Yep. That is carrying on the tradition and bringing it here to California and in particular to Sonoma Valley.
I wanted them to be red blends. I did not want to put the varietally correct because I wanted to be able to, as you just said a minute ago, I wanted to be able to put a little bit of Primitivo, Zinfandel, same exact thing. But I wanted to be able to put it in the Durif, and I wanted to back blend also the Durif into the Primitivo if I needed to, just to create mouthfeel. One of the wonderful things about Durif is it's got this insane mid-palate. It's just a fat, fleshy wine. Yeah. And then obviously Primitivo, very similar to Zinfandel, great briary red fruit in the front, really long finish. It usually has a hole in the middle of it, so I like to add just 1 or 2 or 3% of the Durif to it just to fatten it up a little bit. So since I'm a purist at heart, I wanted to make sure that we called them red blends, simply so that gives me the creative leisure to sort of do what I want in the winery to make the very best wine we can.
So for those of you that don't know Primitivo, it's really caught on here in the United States recently. It really wasn't anything, give us 20 years ago. No one knew what Primitivo was in the United States. No. It's come on because it really is a brother or sister to Zinfandel. But the reason it's called Primitivo is it was really raised in Italy. So as we know, the heritage of Zinfandel is traced directly back via DNA testing by the great, Carol Meredith at UC Davis, directed right back to Croatia. And that's that spicy, big, voluptuous styles sometimes, and spicy just in general. Whereas this, what I have loved about Primitivo, and I've really noticed it as of late, as people like yourself, great winemakers, have really gotten to know this grape, is the fact that it really does have a little bit more floral characteristics to it. So when you smell this, it smells like violets. Like someone just picked violets and put them in my glass. And lavender. And how did that happen? It's the style of the grape as it's grown in Italy. And remember one thing about that. As you go to Croatia, a little bit hotter area up there because it's more north and the sun waves there. But this is kind of the windier areas of right off the Mediterranean in Italy. So thinking on that Italian concept, I mean, this is one thing that I would do with kind of just fun foods, wonderful foods that just really create those.
More of a meaty wine, right?
It is.
I mean, it's not as fruity. For me, Zinfandel's more red fruit, strawberry fruit, raspberry, cherry berry, cola.
Yeah.
I get a lot of cola out of Zinfandel. For me, Primitivo, it's denser.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more blacker fruit, the more cracked black pepper. It's got more, like you said, lavender and spice.
Yeah.
But the characteristics for me are darker fruit.
Yeah.
A little bit fatter, a little bit denser wine. Maybe a little more tannin.
Yeah.
And that may just simply be that it's not quite as fruity
Yeah.
as Zinfandel. But I love the textural qualities of this wine.
I do too. And the wonderful thing about it too is it does have some blue fruit qualities too, and that's that little touch of blueberry that you get on the nose that you really don't find very often in Zinfandel. So really the uniqueness of this and the grape variety, even though it is directly related to Zinfandel, it just has its own charm and class. And I think that really right here where it's grown, this is an interesting part of Sonoma Valley. You can't see exactly where we're at, but if you guys like Chateau St. Jean, it's right there, right, looking right down this hill at Chateau St. Jean. But the interesting thing is too, this is a part of the valley that's in the northern part of Sonoma Valley. So there's a wind current that comes in here that sweeps off the ocean, goes into what we call the Santa Rosa Plains, and comes in and empties into the valley this way. Yeah. There's also one that comes in through Bennett Valley over there. And then the rest of the valley is really influenced more by the Petaluma Gap and its close proximity to the bay, the San Francisco Bay down there. Whereas this one is just really this sweeping wind. I feel the wind coming in, right? It's starting right now. This is the afternoon. We're having fun. But it's going to kick in. And this is the reason why this grape really grows well here.
The fog rolls in over the hills. And it actually is, this particular site, which is really interesting, you know, usually Primitivo and Zinfandel and Durif and Petit Syrah and those grapes, they're early ripening grapes. Part of the reason they added the Pilosin to it, the Syrah, to make Durif was to make it a little bit more early ripening of a grape. The irony is this particular site is extremely late.
Wow.
The hang time is insane here. We have fog, it rolls in, it stops a little bit below us. It doesn't ever really make it to the vineyard, but it's really friggin' cold here at night, and it all the way into the morning. So I mean, when it comes over the hill here, we don't actually get sun until around 11, 10:30. So it's really, really cold. And what that does is it pushes it so where we, you know, normally the valley around us picks in that September 15th, 18th, 20th range. We're October 10th, 15th. I picked October 15th last year.
Wow, crazy.
And that extra hang time really gives that real nice maturity of fruit. It really blows off a lot of that, any herbaceousness that you might actually get from these wines. And I just really love the maturity of the hang time that we're able to get here.
Well, the first two wines that we tasted were the rosé. This is a rosé of Grenache. And the second one that we tasted was the estate. This is the Remus, which is the amazing Primitivo. I'm going to run up the hill because I got to get a selfie before this sun gets too hot. But I'll be back and we'll talk about food and the other wines momentarily.
Absolutely.
Cool. Thanks, brother.
Evan.
Woo, be right back.
Okay.